Hello out there, and welcome to Nathan Reads the Bible. This is Nathan, I am your host, and I am here to read the Bible. What a few days. The reason why I have been gone for a few days is because I've been kind of taking care of my dog. He went out the other night, and when he came back in, he was limping. We took him to a vet, and the doctor said that he's probably got a torn tendon somewhere in his knee. Surgical options were like $5,000, which make them not an option. So we are praying for Buddy, and we are giving him pain medicine, and we are hoping for the best. Keeping him well rested and hoping for the best, because the doctor said that's basically the other way to do things if you don't have money. So that's what we've been doing, just kind of making sure he doesn't overexert himself and giving him his flavored medicine, which he still doesn't like. And that's owning a dog. So if you say a little prayer for poor Buddy the scared white dog, who is also a big part of a book series that I write called Buddy the Scared White Dog. It's a kid's book series, but it's fun. Okay, so we're getting into Exodus, and I wanted to read a little bit about Exodus before I got into the actual Bible. And what I've come up with, just as an icebreaker to start kind of understanding the importance of Exodus and whatnot. What I've come up with is an article that's not real long. It's from a source that is usually used by college students. It's called EBSCO. If you're in college, you probably know about EBSCO. It's where you go do your research from all the college libraries that are connected. But it also has some good stuff when it comes to research. And the bibliography for this, what I did was I looked at the bibliography to see where it got the words that it used, the ideas for what it was talking about, and I didn't find anything that made me say, So I'm going to use this as our introduction to Exodus. Alright, as a matter of religious and cultural tradition, the Jewish prophet and leader Moses has historically been identified as the author of the Pentateuch, a term used to collectively describe the first 5 books of the biblical Old Testament. The Pentateuch includes the books of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Its date of composition is traditionally given as 1450 to 1410 BCE. Some books in the Pentateuch contain references to events that contradict known biographical details about Moses and the time in which he lived, as well as allusions to events that occurred long after Moses died. These passages have led some experts to question Moses' long accepted authorship of the Pentateuch. However, in the case of the book of Exodus, biblical scholars have compiled evidence supporting Moses as its author. For example, numerous Exodus passages, such as Exodus chapter 24, verse 4, reference events, interactions, and geographic features that can only have been known to someone who participated in or witnessed them firsthand. In the New Testament's Gospel of Mark, chapter 7, verse 10, Jesus Christ makes a direct reference to Moses' authorship of Exodus. Gonna look it up. Mark 17, let's see. Mark is the book after Matthew. Alright, 7 verse 10. Jesus. For Moses said, honor your father and your mother, and anyone who curses his father or mother must be put to death. Oh, wow. But, he's repeating what Moses said. Well, those are some pretty harsh words. Not gonna lie. Okay, but he did make a direct reference to Moses there. That's what it comes down to. Okay, these indications do not definitively position Moses as the undisputed author of Exodus, but suggest that contemporary figures, including Christ himself, recognized and accepted that Exodus and the entire Pentateuch were the work of Moses. Religious scholars also note that Moses was educated in the courts of Egyptian royals and was therefore literate in both the ability and opportunity required to create the biblical works ascribed to him. However, the idea that Moses wrote Exodus and the Pentateuch have also been challenged. I would think that would have said ideas that Moses wrote. Okay. Divergences of expert opinion have led multiple schools of thought regarding authorship of the Pentateuch. Fundamentalists, conservatives, and traditionalists generally continue to accept Moses as the Pentateuch's authorship. Others believe that the Pentateuch was not actually composed by Moses, but based substantially on accounts, descriptions, and content that Moses personally delivered to his followers during his lifetime. Meanwhile, some researchers question whether Moses had any meaningful direct involvement in the writing of the Pentateuch at all. Wow. The consensus opinion is that Moses made, at minimum, substantial contributions to the Pentateuch's composition, and any parts not directly written by Moses were either based on his teachings or crafted after his death in a style supporting their seamless integration into the portions of the Pentateuch that Moses completed during his lifetime. Okay. So, in summary, Exodus begins approximately 4 centuries after the events described at the end of Genesis. The descendants of the original nation of Israel remain in Egypt, where they are enslaved under a new royal regime that orders all Israelite boys to be killed at birth. One woman defies the order, sending her newborn son down the Nile River in a basket. The child is rescued by the daughter of the ruling Egyptian pharaoh. She names him Moses and raises him as her own. Moses becomes aware of his origin and flees to the town of Midian after killing an Egyptian for beating an Israelite slave. There Moses marries and becomes a shepherd. Taking the form of a burning bush, God appears to Moses and reveals the covenant established in the book of Genesis, a holy pledge of the people of Israel that they will one day reach freedom and self-determination in their promised land of Canaan. In Exodus, the promised land is famously described as a land flowing with milk and honey. I was thinking about that whole milk and honey thing the other day. I know back then it was like cool, but like I'm thinking about a place that's like full of like people pouring milk and just like honey dripping, and it seems like a sticky mess to me. But to the people back then, that sounded like an awesome place. It sounded way more interesting to me when I was a child. Maybe now I've learned that honey is messy. Anyways, God charges Moses with the task of leading the Israelite people out of slavery and back to their promised land. Moses is reluctant, prompting God to equip him with a wooden staff capable of performing miracles. Together with his brother Aaron, Moses returns to Egypt to assume leadership of the Israelite people, demanding that the Egyptian pharaoh free the Israelites. Moses turns his miracle-performing staff into a snake. Unimpressed by the display, the pharaoh refuses Moses' request and redoubles the enslavement of the Israelites. In response, God unleashes a series of calamities onto Egypt, known as the 10 plagues. Prior to the onset of each plague, Moses entreaties the Pharaoh to release the Israelite people, but in each case the Pharaoh refuses. Prominent examples of the 10 plagues include a divine transmutation of the Nile River from water and blood, gnat and locust swarms, perpetual darkness, and a rain of frogs that buries all of Egypt. The Pharaoh finally relents when the final plague kills all the firstborn male children of Egypt, which the Israelites avoided by spreading the blood of the sacrificial lambs on their doorways in a signal to God to spare the house. Marking their escape from slavery with a feast of the Passover, the Israelites travel west toward the Red Sea with the forces of the Egyptian Pharaoh in pursuit. Moses uses his miracle-working staff to part the sea, allowing the Israelites to cross in safety before the waters crash back into place and stop the Pharaoh's advance. The episode secures Moses' position as leader of the Israelites, and Moses leads them to Mount Sinai. There God appears to Moses, the 10 Commandments, which are etched on 2 stone tablets. The 10 Commandments are prescriptive directions for leading an ethical life. And God tells Moses that the covenant with Israelite people will be fulfilled if the Israelites honor them. Moses subsequently finds that his brother Aaron and the Israelite people have built the idol of a golden calf, which they blasphemously worship in direct defiance of the 10 Commandments. Managing to appease the angry God, Moses pleads for God to spare the Israelites, to which God agrees. As a forgiving and merciful deity, God delivers precise instructions to Moses for the construction of a suitable temple known as the Tabernacle, which Moses follows in perfect detail. All right, here's the themes. Analysts often contrast Genesis with Exodus, positioning Genesis as an origin story and identifying Exodus as the work that establishes the fundamental religious and dogmatic pillars of the Judeo-Christian tradition. The delivery of the 10 Commandments and the construction of the tabernacle on God's precise specifications both offer fundamental displays of this dogmatism in action. God's law and God's word must be obeyed without question or exception. Moreover, God's law does not just institute a set of prescriptive norms for the Israelites to follow. It describes a way of life to which they must adhere for their covenant with God to be upheld. Exodus also portrays God as watchful and demanding but fair and forgiving, as a watchful and demanding but fair and forgiving deity. God. This is a secular source. The portrayal which is arguably on clearest display in the episode in which Moses discovers Aaron and the Israelites worshiping the golden calf idol largely defines the many treatments of God found in later books of both the Old and New Testaments. God's law functions as another major theme of the book of Exodus. The book contains the first formal and explicit set of direct instructions from God describing how faithful, religiously observant people should live. In this sense, the book of Exodus occupies a critically important place in the Judeo-Christian scriptural canon. The theme of obedience to holy law is closely related to the ongoing theme of covenants, which began in Genesis and continues in Exodus. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, a covenant is a type of sacred promise between God and human beings, in which human beings can earn the reward of God's special favor by meeting certain specified terms and conditions. Another major theme of the book of Exodus is revealed by understanding that the dual nature of the word Exodus in the ancient Hebrew language. The modern sense Exodus means a mass scale escape or departure from something or somewhere. This definition describes the main narrative thrust of the book of Exodus, which recounts the mass departure of Israelites from their enslavement in Egypt. However, in ancient Hebrew, the word Exodus originally referred to names and nomenclature. Exodus mentions multiple names for God, including one episode in which Moses directly asks the name of God, to which God replies, "I am that I am." Exodus chapter 3, verse 14. Prevailing interpretations of the cryptic, widely discussed and debated exchange tend to fixate on God's description using a verb suggesting that God does not necessarily conform to the configuration one might typically expect. God's physical manifestations throughout the book of Exodus advance this same theme. For example, God takes the unusual form of a burning bush in one appearance before Moses. The burning bush. And we are going to get to that because we're getting into the Bible next. Sorry, sometimes I make little sing-songy songs and I sing them and it's just part of who I am. But that's just me. And I should have had this already. I did. I had it prepared. I had the page folded. Alright. Here we are. Exodus chapter 1. That only took 16 minutes. Okay, we're alright. Alright, I'm going to read 1 through 5 tonight. So let's get going on this. The Israelites oppressed. These are the names of the sons of Israel who went to Egypt with Jacob, each with his family: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher. The descendants of Jacob numbered 70 in all. Joseph was already in Egypt. Now Joseph and all his brothers and all that generation died. But the Israelites were fruitful and multiplied greatly and became exceedingly numerous, so that the land was filled with them. Then a new king, who did not know about Joseph, came to power in Egypt. Look, he said to his people, the Israelites have become too numerous for us. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous, and if war breaks out, we'll join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the country. So they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor. And they built Pithom and Ramses as store cities for Pharaoh. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. So the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites and worked them ruthlessly. They made their lives bitter with hard labor in brick and mortar and with all kinds of work in the fields. In all their hard labor, the Egyptians used them ruthlessly. The king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, whose names were Shiphrah and Puah, when you help the Hebrew women in childbirth and observe them on the delivery stool, if it is a boy, kill him, but if it is a girl, let her live. The midwives, however, feared God and did not do what the kings of Egypt had told them to do. They let the boys live. Oh shoot, I was jumping up back into Genesis. Sorry, the end of Genesis is at the top of this page. So, whoops. Okay, they let the boys live. Then the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and asked them, why have you done this? Why have you let the boys live? The midwives answered Pharaoh, Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They are vigorous and give birth before the midwives arrive. So God was kind to the midwives, and the people increased and became even more numerous. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own. Then Pharaoh gave this order to all his people, every boy that is born you must throw into the Nile, but let every girl live. The birth of Moses. Now a man in the house of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put him among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbanks. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her slave girl to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. "This is one of the Hebrew babies," she said. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" "Yes, go," she answered, and the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you." So the woman took the baby and nursed him. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water." Moses flees to Midian. One day after Moses had grown up, he went out to where his people were and watched them at their hard labor. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his own people. Glancing this way and that and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. The next day he went out and saw two Hebrews fighting. He asked the one in the wrong, "Why are you hitting your fellow Hebrew?" The man said, "Who made you ruler and judge over us? Are you thinking of killing me as you killed the Egyptian?" Then Moses was afraid and thought, what I did must have become known. When Pharaoh heard of this, he tried to kill Moses, but Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in Midian, where he sat down by a well. Now a priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came to draw water and fill the troughs to water their father's flock. Some shepherds came along and drove them away, but Moses got up and came to their rescue and watered their flock. When the girls returned to Reuel, their father, he asked them, "Why have you returned so early today?" They answered, "An Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds. He even drew water for us and watered the flock." "And where is he?" he asked his daughters. "Why did you leave him? Invite him to have something to eat." Moses agreed to stay with the man, who gave his daughter Zipporah to Moses in marriage. Zipporah gave birth to a son, and Moses named him Gershon, saying, "I have become an alien in a foreign land." During that long period, the king of Egypt died. The Israelites groaned for their slavery and cried out, and their cry for help because of... Wait a minute. Okay, hold on. The Israelites groaned in their slavery and cried out, and their cry for help because of their slavery went up to God. God heard their groaning, and he remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. So God looked on the Israelites and was concerned about them. Oh, there go my baptism papers again. I need to put these somewhere better. Okay. Chapter 3, Moses and the burning bush. Now, Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the far side of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. So Moses thought, "I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up." When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called to him from within the bush, "Moses, Moses." And Moses said, "Here I am." "Do not come any closer," God said. "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground." Then he said, "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." At this Moses hid his face, because he was afraid to look at God. The Lord said, "I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and bring them up out of the land out of that land in a good space and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now go, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." But Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" And God said, I will be with you, and this will be the sign that to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on his mountain. Moses said to God, suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? Then what shall I tell them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites, I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, say to the Israelites, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, the name by which I am to be remembered from generation to generation. Go assemble the elders of Israel and say to them, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, appeared to me and said, I have watched over you and have seen what has been done to you in Egypt. And I have promised to bring you up out of your misery in Egypt until the land of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites, and a land flowing with milk and honey. The elders of Israel will listen to you. Then you and the elders are to go to the king of Egypt and say to him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us. Let us take a 3-day journey into the desert to offer sacrifices to the Lord our God. But I know that the king of Egypt will not let you go unless a mighty hand compels him. So I will stretch out my hand and strike the Egyptians with all the wonders that I will perform among them, and that he will let you go. After that he will let you go. And I will make the Egyptians favorably disposed toward this people, so that when you leave you will not go empty-handed. Every woman is to ask her neighbor and any woman living in her house for articles of silver and gold and for clothing, which you will put on your sons and daughters, and you will plunder the Egyptians. Chapter 4, Signs for Moses. Moses answered, what if they do not believe me or listen to me and say, the Lord did not appear to you? Then the Lord said to him, what is that in your hand? A staff, he replied. The Lord said, throw it to the ground. Moses threw it to the ground, and it became a snake, and he ran from it. Then the Lord said to him, reach out your hand and take it by the tail. So Moses reached out and took hold of the snake, and it turned back into a staff in his hand. This, said the Lord, is so that they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and not the God of Jacob, has appeared to you. Then the Lord said, put your hand inside your cloak. So Moses put his hand into his cloak, and when he took it out, it was leprous like snow. Now put it back in your cloak, he said. So Moses put his hand back into his cloak, and when he took it out, it was restored like the rest of his flesh. Then the Lord said, if they do not believe you or pay attention to the first miraculous sign, they may believe the second. But if they do not believe these 2 signs or listen to you, take some water from the Nile and pour it on the dry ground. The water you take from the river will become the blood on the ground. Moses said to the Lord, O Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither or in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue. The Lord said to him, who gave man his mouth? Who makes him deaf or mute? Who gives him sight or makes him blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you speak and will teach you what to say. But Moses said, O Lord, please send someone else to do it. Then the Lord's anger burned against Moses, and he said, what about your brother Aaron, the Levite? I know he can speak well. He is already on his way to meet you, and his heart will be glad when he sees you. You shall speak to him and put words in his mouth. I will help both of you speak and will teach you what to do. He will speak to the people for you, and it will be as if he were your mouth and as if you were God to him. But take this staff in your hand so you can perform miraculous signs with it. Moses returns to Egypt. This is chapter 4, verse 18. Then Moses went back to Jethro, his father-in-law, and said to him, "Let me go back to my own people in Egypt and see if any of them are still alive." Jethro said, "Go, and I wish you well." Now the Lord had said to Moses in Midian, "Go back to Egypt, for all the men who wanted to kill you are dead." So Moses took his wife and sons, put them on a donkey, and started back to Egypt. And he took the staff of God in his hands. The Lord said to Moses, "When you return to Egypt, see that you perform before Pharaoh all the wonders I have given you the power to do. But I will harden his heart so that he will not let the people go. Then say to Pharaoh, 'This is what the Lord says. Israel is my firstborn son, and I told you, let my son go so he may worship me. But you refuse to let him go, so I will kill your firstborn son.' At a lodging place on the way, the Lord met Moses and was about to kill him, but Zipporah took a flint knife, cut off her son's foreskin, and touched Moses' feet with it. 'Surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me,' she said. So the Lord let him alone. At that time she said, 'bridegroom of blood,' referring to circumcision." I'm going to have to go a little deeper into that last passage. That's a little interesting. Okay, so the Lord said to Aaron, "Go into the desert to meet Moses." So he met Moses at the mountain of God and kissed him. Then Moses told Aaron everything the Lord had sent him to say, and also about all the miraculous signs he had commanded him to perform. Moses and Aaron brought together all the elders of the Israelites, and Aaron told them everything the Lord had said to Moses. He also performed the signs before the people, and they believed, and when they heard that the Lord was concerned about them and had seen their misery, they bowed down and worshipped. Chapter 5. Bricks without straw. Afterward, Moses and Aaron went to the Pharaoh and said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Let my people go so that they may hold a festival to me in the desert." Pharaoh said, "Who is the Lord that I should obey him and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go." Then they said, "The God of the Hebrews has met with us. Now let us take a 3-day journey into the desert to offer sacrifices to the Lord our God, or he may strike us with plagues or with the sword." But the king of Egypt said, "Moses and Aaron, why are you taking the people away from their labor? Get back to your work." Then Pharaoh said, "Look, the people of the land are now numerous, and you are stopping them from working." The same day Pharaoh gave this order to the slave drivers and foremen in charge of the people: "They are no longer to supply the people with straw for making bricks. Let them go and gather their own straw, but require them to make the same number of bricks as before. Don't reduce the quota. They are lazy, that is why they are crying out. Let us go and sacrifice to our God. Make the work harder for the men, so that they may keep working and pay no attention to lies." Then the slave drivers and the foremen went out and said to the people, "This is what Pharaoh says: I will not give you any more straw. Go and get your own straw wherever you can find it, but your work will not be reduced at all." So the people scattered all over Egypt to gather stubble to use for straw. The slave drivers kept pressing them, saying, "Complete the work required for you Complete the work required of you for each day, just as when you had straw." The Israelite foremen appointed by Pharaoh's slave drivers were beaten and were asked, "Why didn't you meet your quota of bricks yesterday or today as before?" Then the Israelite foreman went and appealed to Pharaoh. "Why have you treated your servants this way? Your servants are given no straw, yet we are told, 'Make bricks.' Your servants are being beaten, but the fault is with your own people." Pharaoh said, "Lazy, that's what you are, lazy. That is why you keep saying, 'Let us go and sacrifice to the Lord.' Now get to work. You will not be given any straw, yet you must produce your full quota of brick." The Israelite foremen realized they were in trouble when they were told, "If you are not to reduce the number of image bricks, the number of The Israelite foremen realized they were in trouble when they were told, "You are not to reduce the number of bricks required of you for each day." When they left Pharaoh, they found Moses and Aaron waiting to meet them, and they said, "May the Lord look upon you and judge you. You have made us a stench to the Pharaoh and his officials, and have put a sword in their hand to kill us." And that is the end of chapter 5. Tomorrow we will be getting into chapter 6. Probably do 6 through 10, maybe 6 through 11 tomorrow. Okay? Other things I would like to say to my 15th subscriber: thank you for joining the club. That was not a special hand signal. Thanks for being a part of what I'm trying to do here. There we go. I'll just use both of them together so nothing gets misconstrued as anything else. Okay. Yes. Thank you, 15th subscriber. One at a time. Word of mouth gets through. I'm going to just keep posting about this on my Facebook over and over again. Thank you to my 15th subscriber. 15 videos out, now 16 videos. Things are rolling, and I'm really happy with the way it's going, and I thank God for it. And with that, I am going to close with prayer. Oh, Heavenly Father, thank you for this podcast. Thank you for the book of Exodus. Thank you that we were able to get through Genesis in a timely fashion, and now we've started the book of Exodus to see how your promises to the Israelites were delivered, Lord. I pray that, again, you will help this platform be a little light in this world so that people who want to just hear the Bible can come and listen to the Bible and get their daily bread. Lord, I pray and ask that you never lead me down a wrong path or lead me astray and bring false gospel to this platform. I pray that everything that is said here is led by you and is proper and unassailable. And Lord, the last thing that I want to bring up tonight before I say amen is again a prayer for peace. Lord, I do pray a blessing upon everyone out there that's listening, not listening, that's just living, Lord. I pray that you bless them in some way that they may not even notice. Every day you bless me in some way that I may or may not notice, but I know it happens. Lord, I pray again for peace. Peace in this world, peace in the places where peace seems impossible, peace in the places where hatred seems to grow on trees. Lord, please, Lord, bring peace. Lord, I ask you for this important thing. Lord, because I care for other humans on this planet. I know there are a lot of lost souls out there, Lord, and I was one of them. And I pray that those souls get a chance to hear your message before something happens. And Lord, in your name, I pray all these things. Amen. Thank you for checking in tonight, or this morning, or this evening, or whenever it is that you decided to watch. We'll see you next podcast. Oh yeah, next podcast will either be about the Ethiopian Bible or it will be the next verses in Exodus. Not sure which one's going to get made first, but I am making a podcast about the Ethiopian Bible. So stay tuned, or you won't know what I read about the Ethiopian Bible. And Lord knows that's important. No, not really. I'm nobody. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.